In spite of all this, I was still in love with my husband and I made excuses for his bad behavior because that's what you do when you are in love. I didn't care that he never appreciated me nor his embittered family. I prayed day and night for him and my children, and my faith remained ever bright for a better tomorrow. Hello listeners, welcome to Unheard Voices, a Wiki Times bi-weekly podcast dedicated to bringing to light the often overlooked and silenced experiences of women. Throughout history, women's voices have been marginalized and their narratives brushed aside. In northern Nigeria, the voices of women are rarely given a platform, and the few who summon the courage to speak out often face stigmatization. At times, societal pressures compel them to withdraw even when confronted with profound acts of dehumanization. In this podcast, we dive deep into the untold narratives of women, spotlighting their triumphs and struggles in the face of challenges such as forced marriage, gender-based violence, discrimination, and oppression. Unheard Voices aim to change this by offering a platform for women to share their stories. Each episode tells a compelling story of women, from the hardships endured within marriages to the discrimination and societal stigmas linked to diseases. Unheard Voices amplifies the voices of women who have faced these challenges head-on, emerging with resilience and strength. By telling these stories, Wiki Times hope to create a more inclusive and equitable society. Join us on this journey as we give voice to the unheard, challenge societal norms, and work towards a world where every woman's story is heard and cherished. Tune into Unheard Voices and be prepared to be moved, inspired, and enlightened by untold stories of women in northern Nigeria. It was love at first sight when I met Salihu in 2015. We met through a friend, and what started as a courtship ended in marriage. I was just out of secondary school, and my father, who preferred I attained higher education before marriage, secured admission for me to study chemistry at the Federal College of Education, Gombe, with my husband's approval. We got married months later before the commencement of the school's academic session. One of the first things I learned about my husband was how he liked to set his standards high. He was ambitious, even though he was a supplier of foodstuff to secondary school teachers, and what he was earning was barely enough to feed the family. His parents and 4 siblings depended on his mega earning too. Few weeks into our honeymoon phase, which was before I started attending school, Salihu sat me down and convinced me that attaining a college certificate was below his standards. Therefore, he would enroll me in a nursing school instead. I didn't question his judgment, nor did I feel he was wrong, despite the fact that my father was to sponsor my NCE program, not him. The following day, my husband and I visited a nursing school and spoke to the principal, who happened to be his family friend. The man assured us of securing admission into the secondary school before we left. We later paid and completed the application procedures, but unfortunately, I was not lucky to be on the admission list. My husband assured me we will try the following year. By then, I had lost my admission to study chemistry at the FCE. I didn't inform my family about all this. Whenever any of them visited, I left the house and pretended to be at school. I knew they would question me for conceding to such an arrangement without informing them. Even when my father offered to pay for my next registration the following session at the FCE, I lied to him that Salihu was handling that. As far as I was concerned, I was going to become a nurse one day, but Salihu never spoke about it nor made any move. Whenever I asked him, he would tell me not to worry. Weeks turned to months, and I became heavily pregnant with our first son. We were both excited, but sometimes I caught my husband apprehensive, so I decided to confront him. That was when he told me his business had collapsed. I was shocked and confused, wondering how we were going to cope with welcoming a baby at the same time when our house rent was due. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. The poor man then convinced me to sell some of my furniture to settle those bills. Without a second thought, I agreed. My husband sold my bed set alongside his car to build a 1-room apartment on the only piece of land he owned. We moved into a cramped apartment with our new baby. I was not comfortable, but we were happy, and that was enough to keep me content. While all this was happening, my in-laws blamed me for every single thing Saliu could not afford them. This is because he refused to tell them he had lost his job. I didn't understand why he hid it from them, but I was the wife that agreed with her husband all the time without questioning his judgments. As their disdain towards me grew obvious, Saliu was compelled to explain to them, but it did not change their perception towards me. We strived to survive the hardship, but life continued giving us lemons. One morning, my 5-month-old daughter woke up to a cold. We tried some over-the-counter drugs for her, but it only got worse, so we took her to the hospital. After a series of medical tests, it was confirmed that my baby had sickle cell. I was stunned. How could that be possible? Looking out for some explanation from my husband, I strangely noticed he wasn't as stunned as I was. Did he know something? I sat down carefully, ransacking my thoughts and backtracking to when we got married. Were we genetically incompatible in the first place? Did we even conduct premarital tests? No. We were so much in love we skipped that part. Our parents were ignorant of our negligence as well. As the answers materialized, the pungent reality hit me. I looked at my child, then my husband, wondering who was more miserable. Or was it I? The weeks that followed drowned me and my sanity in a river of questions, doubts and fears that I chose not to voice out. On my sleepless nights, I sometimes sat up to stare at my sleeping husband, who I chose to keep a distance from ever since the hospital incident. Months later, Saliu was lucky to secure a contract and earn a lot of money from it. We expanded our house from a 1-bedroom apartment to a comfortable flat of 3 rooms. Saliu's family were once again happy he was back on his feet. I patiently anticipated a refund of my sold properties since that was the agreement, but nothing came. Even after I reminded him on several occasions, he only asked me to give him more time. Well, our comfort was short-lived, and we were back to square one because Saliu spent every penny without investing. He continued selling more of my properties to feed us and to cater for our sick daughter, who had frequent episodes of pains. We barely had enough to eat, coupled with constant worrying. I lost my plumpy body to a lean, fragile one. My concerned older sisters will ask, and I always told them I was working out to slim fit. I accepted its changes and pretended not to be worried, confident that things will change for the better. 4 years later, I gave birth to my second daughter. Luckily for us, she had no sickle cell. With more responsibility into the family, our situation grew worse. I became compelled to turn to my family for help, and they were generous anytime I asked. They didn't suspect anything. That made Saliu reluctant, and gradually, he relieved himself of some of our basic needs, including fending for our newborn and paying medical bills for the sick one. His worsening behavior accumulated to what I had been suppressing for years, and like a full bottle, I couldn't contain it any longer. But I didn't burst open. Instead, I cracked and leaked silently, grieving myself as I watched my fate unraveling in jolting forms. In spite of all this, I was still in love with my husband, and I made excuses for his bad behaviors because that's what you do when you are in love. I didn't care that he never appreciated me, nor his embittered family. I prayed day and night for him and my children, and my faith remained ever bright for a better tomorrow. Except for hope, I was empty inside me, and so was my home. My husband had sold almost everything, which were mostly my properties, from my kitchen appliances to my television and home theater. Our worsening condition took a toll on my husband, and the monster within him took control, making him violent towards me. Before I knew it, I started nursing bruises from beating that were provoked by a simple request to feed me and my children. I watched helplessly as my frustrated husband grew to despise me and avoided me like a plague. My children were victims too, especially the sick one. At that point, it was too much for me to handle. I was left with no choice but to open up to my family. They summoned my husband, and that angered him even more. He reported me to his parents too for complaining to my family. That added to the disdain they had towards me. They finally agreed to find him a second wife. As far as I was concerned, another woman in the family was simply comical. How was he going to manage? Little did I know that he had some saved money and a buoyant family member of his was willing to support the marriage too. I am sure you would like to ask where this family member was while we were struggling to make ends meet. Your guess is as good as mine. Saliu got married a few months later and deserted us with nothing to fend for ourselves. He never brought his new wife home. For 3 weeks, I vainly tried to reach him. After he came home, we had a big fight and he threatened to throw me out. His sister joined him, and amidst the heated fight, she slapped me. I was dazed. I slapped her back, harder than I thought I could. Our neighbors intervened and the chaos died down. My family traveled down that very day and vacated my kids and I out of the house. It's been a year since we left. Saliu never once reached out to me or his kids. My parents are taking good care of us. Would I have left if my family weren't brave enough to drag me out of my hellhole? Even a year later, as I stared in the mirror, all I see is a haggard woman in a young body with empty hopes that would have probably ended 6 feet deep. Some battles are not meant to be fought. Today I'm back home in the midst of the love and affection my family is doing their best to express. But my children are not where they should be. I am not where I deserve to be. What worries me the most is difficult to tell. Was it about not furthering my studies? Or is it about my children growing up without a father? Or is it even about my sick daughter? Thank you for joining us on this episode of Unheard Voices. My question for today is, how much have you tolerated for love? This podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, CJID. It was edited by Ajibola Amzad and produced by Haruna Muhammad. Stay tuned for more empowering stories in our upcoming episodes. We welcome your comments, personal experiences, and the opportunity to feature you in our podcast. Feel free to send us a message at unheardvoices@wikitimes.com or call us at 09021800574. Don't miss out on our updates. You can always listen to Unheard Voices and explore more stories on our website at www.wikitimes.com. See you next time. I'm Salma Nuhu. Bye.